correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like maybe as far as the explanation of the Force, your point may be that Luke's a better teacher than Yoda. How dare you say that, sir? How
Did
dare
not
you?
say that. Hello, this is Mikrra, ready with another installment of Devil's Advocate. Today, I'm the Devil's Advocate, and we are joined by my friend Joshua Lindsay, here to defend the beloved classic of what I'm about to talk about. And today's topic is what The Last Jedi did better than The Empire Strikes Back. This is not a list of points that say the movie is better. It's just elements in the movie. It's just elements in the movie that I think did better than Empire, which is without question the fandom's majority favorite Star Wars movie. And The Last Jedi is the most controversially disliked Star Wars movie, split the fandom-ish. I don't know what people dislike more. I hear people say they dislike this movie more than they dislike the prequels. Which is insane. I'm like, come on. Really, after all that prequel hating, you're gonna hate on this movie? Mm-hmm. Come on. Alright, but I digress. I really like The Last Jedi. I think Empire Strikes Back is better. But we're going to hash this out. My first point is going to be that The Last Jedi did a better job at portraying and presenting the Force and the ways you can use the Force than Empire Strikes Back did. So in The Empire Strikes Back, the Force is still kind of a new thing to the audience. We've only seen him play around with that training ball in the movies, and we've only also seen him destroy the Death Star with help from the Force. And at some point he learned how to pull the lightsaber be able to pull the lightsaber out of the snow, and we'll see Yoda rise X-Wing out of the swamp, and Luke has a vision. And Ghost Obi-Wan, which was totally new in this movie. Great. Cool. So we're learning more about the mysterious Force that Yoda talks about as something they worship. Almost. Not necessarily that they worship, but it almost feels like that. It has this nice mystical element to it. In The Last Jedi, there's a better understanding of the Force that Luke explains what it's for and what it is and what it isn't. That is more, as he's teaching Rey about the Force, he really breaks it down better and more in a way that we can understand, and that seems to honor what it is more than the vagueness that Yoda was giving. We also get to see it used in many different ways that we've never seen before in any other Star Wars movies. Like we see, people don't like this scene, but I thought it was great once I accepted it happened. I just didn't like how it looked. Leia flying through space. It's a Force pull. So that was really cool that she pulled her body into somewhere safe before she would suffocate and die. And then you have Rey and Kylo Ren almost Force Skyping, to the point where they're communicating with each other, it's like they're really there with each other, and Luke's Force projections, being able to project his image from across the galaxy like the boss that he is, and Yoda's ghost, being a Force ghost that can interact and affect the world that is physical from the Force ghost realm.
I'll give you that it does. There is more... that your point is completely true. There is more understandability to what everything is doing, how everyone's using the Force, except the Force projection that Luke uses, which is obviously not explained in the beginning, because then we wouldn't get the reveal. I feel like the reason that we do get this fuller picture of the Force and that it's easier to comprehend is because it's the 8th movie. The Empire is only the 5th movie. So, and like you said, the progression is we get the little floaty thing, we hear Obi-Wan talking, and then and he disappears before that, and then Luke fires the proton torpedo without using the Force, without the computer. And that's all we get. We don't get any Force pushes, we don't get any physical usages of the Force in that until, like you said, in the training on Dagobah. So I feel like it slowly builds as we go, and it expands in 6 and expands incredibly in 1, 2, and 3. So I feel like by the time, especially with Rey, it's all building. So I feel like it's understandable that it would do more and do different things because we already have a foundation. They built the foundation with 5 and all the other ones. So I feel like it's a valid point, but it's also explainable. So I do feel like one bit of contrast is in Empire, Yoda's trying to, the way we're seeing the Force in the film, he's trying to open Luke and the audience up to the world of the Force and how you use it and what you do, and becoming a Jedi and all that really means. Whereas in
he's not trying to shock Luke.
Right. And in 8, it's more of Luke's trying to close right off in like I'm not a part of the Jedi Order anymore. I've turned my back on it, and why are you following this Obi-Wan on this damn fool crusade? Is that?
Yeah.
He's trying to shut her off from that, and I think a good example of this is the cave on Dagobah in H2, I think it's pronounced. Yoda's like not shying him away from it. He's like, go in there, but take only, don't take your lightsaber, everything. He's like, oh, go in there and experience this lesson. And Luke's like really upset that Rey went in the cave on where she was. So he's trying to like how dare you go in there, and he's trying to keep her from as much of a growth in that area as he can. Granted, he is training her very reluctantly, but he's still extremely cautious because of what happened with Ben and other things like that. Ben Kylo, not Ben Kenobi.
Next point that I'm going to present is the Resistance being a better Resistance than the Rebellion being a rebellion.
Woo.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying the Rebels were chumps in Empire Strikes Back. So Empire opens with the Battle of Hoth. Iconic battle, and they fought well. It was a very good battle that they fought long and hard for to get the retreat of all the personnel off the planet done with little to no casualties. It was well done. Good job, guys. But after that, you kind of hide the rest of the movie. I'm sorry, but that's you kind of chumped out at that point, and you didn't take anyone with you at that point. Whereas the Resistance in Last Jedi, yeah, they retreated, little to no casualties, and in the process, they knocked out a Juggernaut. What did you guys do? Not go trip a few walkers? Good job. But then you have also the fact that as they're running away, they're consolidating themselves into less ships and less ships and less ships, and the whole time they're running away from the First Order, who has hyperspace tracking, something the Rebellion has not had to face. They're able to get away after the Battle of Hoth and be done with it, but the Last Jedi Resistance still had to deal with that stuff. With the First Order following them, even after the battle, they weren't allowed to get a break, so they resisted, hence their name, the First Order, throughout the entire movie, and we had the Resistance organization to watch as we jump from main characters to main characters back to Resistance. We were in Empires, main characters, villains, main characters. We never saw the Rebellion again, and for the rest of the movie until the very end when they rendezvous. And at the end of the Resistance, I'm not sorry for saying it like that. That's funny. The Resistance. They ends with an almost foolproof plan. Say it weren't for the leak from Del Toro's character, they would have made it to that planet just fine. They would have escaped without any problem. But even when they got caught, Holdo, light speed right through the First Order. Come on. That was amazing. And then on the planet, they continued to battle out. Those Resistance don't go down without a fight, and they were fighting to the bitter end. And they made it. And there was still hope, and they are way more kick-ass than the Rebellion and Empire. Both movies being dark, but one of these good guys definitely knew how to stick it to the man.
I agree, those are fair points. I think part of it is just different direction in the story and the way the film's going, the way the film's moving. Like you said, the episode 8 follows the Resistance as a whole, including the individual characters in their splits off, while Empire is more just focused on the main characters. It doesn't really care about the Rebellion after Hoth until the very end. And I feel that that's just a filmmaking choice. Like that's how George Lucas wrote it. He wrote 5 to follow the main guys and not everyone. And I feel like true, they didn't have to deal with the hyperspace tracking, so otherwise it would have maybe been a much similar story. I don't know. For me, I just feel like honing in on the characters and exactly what they're doing instead of following the rebellion as a whole just makes it more of an intimate story. You just feel more connected to the characters instead of like juggling. Oh yes, and then this rebellion, and we're stuck in this problem, and here's all these other things that are going on. We're able to focus in more. One nice thing about not following the rebellion or the resistance the entire time is that most of the rebellion is still alive at the end of the movie, unlike the resistance.
Ouch. People died, Josh. Next point is that The Last Jedi had more character beats and development of the character of Luke than the progress that was made for Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Luke didn't grow much in Empire Strikes Back. He grew a lot in Hope. He got introduced to a whole new world, and in Jedi he grew a lot. I think that's his best movie, and Last Jedi is a good bow on top of what happened in Last Jedi. Empire, I feel like so little happens to Luke's character as far as development. In Empire Strikes Back, we start with Luke on Hoth, just being told he's got to go somewhere. So he does. And then on Dagobah, that's probably on Dagobah where we get the most character development out of Luke, where we get a couple more beats of him being impatient, and then him learning that the virtues of the Jedi from Yoda, and then having a vision, acting on it after he shouldn't have, and then he goes off. And then there's not really much after he leaves Dagobah. Dagobah is honestly the only part of the movie where you see a lot of growth happening in Luke, where he becomes to believe in the Force more and in his abilities and all that stuff. In The Last Jedi, we start with Luke starting off in a place of regret and almost anger and surrender from the Jedi Order, and to the point where, like you were pointing out in the earlier points, when he starts to teach Rey about the Force, his goal isn't to make her a Jedi. His goal is to deter her and like shock her out of this ambition of becoming a Jedi and fighting the First Order. But then as the story progresses, there's beats and changes in his character, and he gets to a point where he's seeing things he fears her and her future. Then he goes back and it's like, okay, maybe I'll train you. And then he goes back again to the fear. And then he gets to the point where he's gonna join her, because we've seen that theory where he dressed in white because he was finally gonna join her. But then he finds her, about to touch Kylo Ren via Force guy. And then he reverts. So like Luke is on this roller coaster of emotions and development and growth that we don't get in Empire Strikes Back, up until the ultimate end, where he finally fights the good fight for the light side, accepts his fate and who he is and the state of things and the purpose of the Force and everything, and surrenders to it. He becomes a Force ghost and closes it out. It's like a great conclusion to his story that the Empire doesn't really do for Luke. Most of the Empire's focus is on the development of Han and Leia, but Luke doesn't really get much done for him as far as a character in the Empire Strikes Back.
This is a toughie. You're right. There is much more of a roller coaster kind of development going on with Luke in 8 as opposed to Luke in 5. I feel like there is still significant development of Luke in 5. I feel like there's almost more development. Like, I know you said there's a ton of development in 6, but I almost feel like I don't know, maybe I'm just remembering 6 wrong. I feel like there is more development in 5, that it sets him up for how we see him in 6, much like 4 set him up for how, by the end of 4, how we see him in 5. And like you said, most of his development does take place on Dagobah. I feel like that moment of change, of realization of really becoming the Jedi who we see in 6, really happens on Cloud City instead of Dagobah. Like, because on Dagobah he's still kind of, I don't know, I guess you could say like a rebellious teenager. Like he goes into the cave and takes his lightsaber, even though he was advised not to, with the advisement of both Ben Kenobi and Yoda to not go to rescue his friends. He does anyway. So he's still kind of that, like, I'm gonna do my thing. Like, I care about, and it's true. He's at the point of self-sacrifice. He's caring about his friends more than what they're telling him to do. which that's not like a negative there. It's a mixed bag. It's positive because he's being self-sacrificing, cares about his friends. It's negative because he's being disobedient and going out when they told him not to. But I feel like the point at which it solidifies him into the Jedi who we see him as in 6 is the point where he's fighting Vader, and that "no, I'm your father" moment. And the losing the hand, and just the coming into adulthood, so to speak, and now in modern days, it was just like, oh crap, this is real life. There's like enemy out there who's literally gonna kill me, and oh, he's my father. What on earth is going on? And now I have to fight him and defeat him possibly, which is kind of like what we see in 6 a little bit. I don't know. I just feel like by the end of 5, like when they're on that medical frigate, he's just become more of the Jedi that we see later. Like he's less like. He's just more serious about life and what's going on. So I feel like one point, to use your word, the roller coaster, while that is through Luke's character strewn out through the entire movie of 8, much to a lot of people's chagrin, especially in the beginning, that's like more densely compacted into his time at Dagobah, and it's what 5 lacks in quantity throughout the whole movie, it makes up for in quality of that moment, that whole time in Dagobah when he's on their training. So he goes in and he sees Darth Vader, who he doesn't know who he is yet, but he just sees Darth Vader, and he's like, oh man, I'm gonna fight him. And it turns out when he defeats him that it was really him. And to an 8-year-old kid, this just washed over me. I had no idea. But after being explained to it, this makes total sense. And so he's like, the message is like, if you continue without training in this way you're going, you're going to be Vader. You will become the very thing you sought to destroy. You will give into the dark side, and that's what will happen, which almost did happen in 6. And so shortly after that vision is where Yoda's like tells him to go, to lift the X-wing out of the water because A, he needs it to leave, and B, because it is a part of his teaching and training. And so he tries, and he moves it a little bit, but then he gives up, angrily storms off, and says quite, it just kind of like hits you, where he's like, you want the impossible. And Yoda's like, everyone's disappointed. The audience is disappointed, Yoda's disappointed, Luke's angry, and it just shows that, like, it's not all, like, great. Dagobah isn't all great. It's not bad either. It's all up and down. Like, he's doing good with the rocks and moving things, training, and then he, like, can't concentrate enough, and it falls, and Yoda falls, and you're like, no, Yoda! And then, and he's again saddened. This is earlier. But it's just, like, up and down. He's, like, this is going great, and then it's like, no, this is going crappy. And so it's just an up and down of what's going on. And then back with the X-Wing, then while Luke's starting to storm off in this like epic, powerful moment, Yoda pulls the X-Wing out of the swamp and sets it down and like shows him like, no, this is what we're doing here. This is the point. You can be able to do this. You don't have to just like trust me and have patience and listen. And Luke still is upset and still mad about it. And so quite honestly, you're downplaying what all happens on Dagobah. Like the amount of stuff that happens on Dagobah is just the same amount of stuff that we see in Luke's development throughout the whole movie, just compacted into one area of explosiveness.
My final point is going to be quite controversial to say. I can't believe I'm saying it. The Last Jedi arguably has a better plot twist than Empire Strikes Back.
No. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're going to have to explain that one.
Hear me out here.
I will fight
you. Okay. Okay, so
I'm waiting.
I think it's fair to say that the the elements of plot twist need to have some kind of built-up expectation, and then you twist it, because you're twisting a plot. There's a plot progression, then you twist it, and you throw everything out the window, and you say, okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
So The Empire Strikes Back does do that in a way, but there's no reason to even think of, like, why. It didn't even matter who Luke's father was until Vader made it about it. So that's the plot twist there. But the plot twist in The Last Jedi is more of a... There's no build-up to who Luke's father is. But there is a build-up as to the might and venom and villainous nature of Snoke. Snoke is hyped up in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And he's hyped up in The Last Jedi. And the audience is expecting, because it's a trilogy and there's progression, that it's leading to a third movie with him and there'll be an climactic battle then. But we kill him off in the second movie. So that, I feel like, is more of a jerk, and as far as twist, because there was more build-up to that twist that leads you to that twist. Whereas The Empire Strikes Back just blindsides you with something that it kind of just didn't even, build a foundation for. They just kind of threw that there and left you to deal with that, and then you kept going from there. Great plot twist. Don't get me wrong. I think it's the greatest plot twist of all time. But I think in form, The Last Jedi had better form of a plot twist. 'Cause they kind of earned it more and gave you something to cling to until they ripped it out of your hands. Which is what I think a better plot twist needs to be. Something that is ripped out of your hands. Not something that is taken away from you before you even had a chance to realize it was there.
Okay. That's what it's gonna be.
Fight me!
So, both villains were in two movies before this took place. Or they were in the second movie when it took place. So we see both villains, and if you just look at it from that perspective, not with the aspect of a future expectation, like with Snoke, we're looking forward for that big climactic battle. With Vader, there is no expectation about him being his father because, like you said, we don't know. There's no question about who is Vader. I mean, there is, but not in regard to it's Luke's father, obviously. So there is. If we just disregard the expectation part of it and just look at the build-up. It is similar in form. I think that, obviously, and like you said, 5 pulls it off better. But I think one element that you're leaving out, you said, there's no foundation. There's no foundation at all for Darth Vader being Luke's father.
Well, for it to matter as a plot point.
Okay, yeah, for it to matter as a plot point.
Because at that point, we didn't care who his father was.
I think we did.
We did?
Yes, because in 4,
we were told his father's dead, so we don't regard him as anything. We don't even think of Darth Vader as a candidate, which is why it's a good twist. See, I'm trying not to give it to you. I'm just saying, my point is that we were given Snoke as the main villain, and then they took that away. We weren't given anything as far as who Darth Vader was, or who Luke's father was. So there wasn't any kind of twisting of something. If that makes sense. I mean, your counterpoint could be that my definition of a plot twist is wrong, and that's not what a plot twist is.
I think plot twists can change. I think plot twists can happen like that, or plot twists can happen like 5. It's still, and like you said, it's still a plot twist. I think, yes, you're right, but I think also there's enough groundwork laid, not necessarily with an expectation that Luke's father is going to come back or matters. As far as if he's still present and who that may be, but I think there's enough groundwork. Like in 4, Obi-Wan talks about him. He was the best fighter pilot in the galaxy, and there's kind of like this disagreement between Ben and Uncle Owen about Luke's father and the role he played, and how good of a Jedi or whatever, or good of a character he was person-wise. So I think there's enough dialogue about his father that it lays a foundation for us to know, okay, Luke's father. It's not just it's not as out of the blue as you made it seem. Like, oh, by the way, we haven't mentioned anything about my father, but that's my father! What? It's like, no. We've talked about his father. We know his father exists. We know his father was a Jedi. So there's the foundation laid. There's set up for... there's a jump to the reveal, because it's not, like you said, there's not, the expectation isn't there. But the groundwork is laid, so when the jump is made, it's even more shocking. Like, I don't know, have you seen that picture of Luke and Leia when they were told that it was his father? Like, come on. The reveal is, I feel like Be that as it may, the payoff is way better.
Fair enough. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end and seeing everything that we had to present to you in this video of The Devil's Advocate, Last Jedi over Empire Strikes Back. Also, thank you for my friend Josh Lindsay for joining me on this little crazy installment. Please like this video if you liked it, and let me know what you think in the comments, or what arguments I could have made that potentially Last Jedi did better than Empire Strikes Back. You may fire when ready. I'm not responsible for what people say in there, because I've already said enough as it is. Share this video with your friends and get them involved in the conversation, and subscribe to see more content coming from me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.
May the Force be with you.
But I'm glad I saved that point for last. You did not like that.
I did not see that coming at all.
That was like...
Just like Luke's father.
That you can consider that last point my plot twist.
Yeah, there you go.
Where I take Devil's Advocate where it's never gone before. I went as far as to say something that... Whoa, sir. I went so far as to say something that blasphemous. You know I was tripping. You know I was waiting for that. I enjoyed that so much. Alright, let's close it out.